accused of being Jack the Ripper. At Marlborough Street Police Court on Monday, William Avenel, 26, chimney sweep of Adam and Eve Court, Oxford Street, and Frederick W. Moore, 28, carver and gilder of Carlisle Street, Soho, were charged with being disorderly and with assaulting Henry Edward Leake, an oil and colour man of Gilbert Street, Oxford Street, on Saturday night. Leake said that on Saturday evening about 5 o'clock he went into a public house at the corner of the street when several persons accosted him. The prisoners accused him of being Jack the Ripper and told him that they were detectives in plain clothes and that they should arrest him as the Whitechapel murderer. They took him outside and dragged him in a brutal manner as far as Newman Passage. They struck him with a stick and he implored them not to be so brutal. He resisted as best he could and they struggled in the streets together for about 3/4 of an hour. Persons stopped and looked at them, and when the prisoners called out, "He's Jack the Ripper and we are detectives taking him to the station," they made off and did not attempt to render him assistance. He got no protection and was shaken and bruised until he felt quite disabled. When he got near 62 Berners Street, he managed to get away from his assailants and sprung down the stairs of that house into the basement, got into the kitchen, and momentarily lost sight of his pursuers. About 14 young ladies were at tea, and when Avenel followed and told them that Jack the Ripper was in the house and that he, Avenel, was a detective and had come to arrest him, they became terribly frightened and screamed loudly for the police. Avenel, finding him again, dragged him up the stairs, exclaiming, "He's Jack the Ripper!" Madam Muntz, the landlady of 62 Berners Street, deposed that the man Leake had been in the habit of bringing oil, wood and other articles to the house, and she therefore knew him. Being unacquainted with the prisoner Avenel, she sent for a constable, and he was taken into custody. Leake became so unwell after the affair that he had to take to his bed. In defence, Avenel said that he and his friends were in the public house, where they saw Leake sitting in a corner. He had his head down and was mumbling something to himself. As he seemed strange in his manner, they asked him what was the matter, and he replied, "Don't bother me, I'm in some trouble." They asked him if they should see him home, and when he told them he lived at 62 Berners Street, he, Avenel, doubted it, as he did the chimney sweeping there, and knowing that it was only occupied by females, he expressed his intention of taking him there to ascertain if that statement was correct. On reaching the house, Leake ran down the steps into the basement and shouted to the inmates, "There's a strange man in the house!" He, Avenel, followed, and finding Leake crouching in the cellar, dragged him out. Madam and all the young ladies screamed until one of them, recognising the prosecutor, exclaimed, "Why, it is our little oil man!" and then they became calmer and less excited. The prisoner Moore said that when he descended the steps, he tried to pacify the ladies, telling them that it was only a foolish joke. Constable Downey, 364D, said that he saw Avenel holding the prosecutor outside the house in Berners Street. He, Avenel, called out, "Here he is! I have got him! This is Jack the Ripper! I mean to take him to the police station. If the police can't do their duty, I can." Being asked who he was, Avenel said that he was a private detective. The prisoner Moore rushed out of the house, but was pursued and taken into custody. Eventually, both the men were conveyed to the police station. The prosecutor was sober, but the prisoner, Avenel, had been drinking. A witness for the defence was called, who stated that when the prosecutor entered the public house, someone exclaimed, "Here's a funny little man, perhaps he's Jack the Ripper." On being questioned, Leake said that his name was Smith and that he was a tin plate worker. That statement being doubted, it was resolved to ascertain who and what he was, and in this way the affair at first commenced. Mr. Hannay said that it was a very dangerous thing for people to personate detectives and directed Inspector Ettridge to see whether the prisoners could be further charged with that offence. Very serious results might have arisen out of the affair, which required further inquiry, and he would therefore adjourn the case for a week, allowing bail in the sum of £10 for each of the prisoners. Avenel and Moore next appeared before Mr. Hannay on Monday the 19th of November, when they both denied that they had claimed to be detectives. Mr. A. Newton, the solicitor who represented them, said that they were both hard-working, respectable men, and told the court that they had a genuine belief that Leek was the Whitechapel murderer. His clients, he said, were more than willing to compensate Leek. Mr. Hannay said that this offer was too late, but he thought it was a case which might have been settled by a civil action. Upon the question of whether the accused alleged they were detectives, he would give them the benefit of the doubt. Leek, however, was a timid man, and judging by his doctor's certificate, the prisoner seemed to have frightened him into a state of nervous depression. The attack was a most groundless one, and the accused must each pay a fine of 50 shillings, together with 50 shillings costs by way of compensation to Mr. Leek, or in default, go to prison for a month. And so the protagonists in this particular story shuffled back into obscurity. On first reading the story, I found it a curious one, but then I really began to feel for poor Edward Leek, who must have been absolutely terrified by what occurred to him that long ago Saturday afternoon, and the case illustrates what could happen when a few ill-informed hotheads felt they had the right to accuse a perfectly innocent man who was simply minding his own business of being Jack the Ripper.